Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Conversations, Job Hunting and Storytelling. I'm Sam Harvey. I'm the Professional Development Coordinator in the Center for Career and Professional Development. So this is our ongoing series about sort of the job hunting process. This is our first semester doing it, and we're so excited to have you here and part of it. We've done a bunch of other topics before, and all videos for this are recorded and then posted up on our YouTube channel, which is just Prac CCPD for you to watch at any point. We'll probably also continue this series next semester with some probably repeating topics, but some new topics as well. If throughout the presentation you have questions, the best thing is to put them into the chat bar, and I will get to them either at the end or as we go along. Keep yourself muted. It just makes it easier to not have any sort of sound feedback happening. There will also be chat time at the end of this for you to ask me other questions as well. These usually take around 20 to 15 minutes for me to get through my content, and then I'll hang out really for as long as you have questions, and for as late as 2 o'clock, because that's when my next appointment is. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and jump right in. So the first part, as far as, and if you've attended any of these other sessions, the general idea around looking for a job to begin with, and also looking, and we like to make it be thinking as far as like, what is your future career? So not just what's your next step, but what's your next 5 steps gonna be? The biggest thing we want you to know, and the best way for you to be able to start telling your story is to know what you want. I will send the YouTube channel in a few minutes when I'm done with this, because I can't grab it right now. But what do you want from your job? That's the first question you need to answer to start to figure out, well, what's the best story to be able to tell to get there. So what are your deal breakers? What are the most important things to you? Because you're going to want to find a place that those are their deal breakers as well, or a place that doesn't have any of those deal breakers. Those are really important things for you for figuring out what is your story. What are your passions? What are things that you really want to work on? If you're really interested in working within politics and social justice and sort of that world of really trying to make change, then you're going to want to look for companies that are in that area, and maybe not as much something in the like private business sector. There are definitely ways to work within politics and social good within the private sector as well, but then it's looking for a company that then puts that as something that they're also interested in, and that gives back to the community in some way. And then what's next for you? It's great that you're looking for whatever position you're looking for right now, and you're looking to get that job. But what is going to be the next move for you? How is this going to be a stepping stone to you getting there? There's the job you get right after you graduate. There's the job that you're going to want in 5 years. There's the ultimate goal of where you see yourself in 10 years. And it can be really daunting to have to think, well, where do I see myself in 10 years? I don't even know what I'm going to eat for breakfast tomorrow. How am I supposed to figure out where I want to be in 10 years? That 10-year goal is really something that's going to change multiple times. In 2 years, you're going to think something different, but as you're starting to make your plans, understanding what comes after what you're doing right now will be really helpful for you for kind of figuring out if this is the right place for you, and for you to explain to the other place why this is a good fit for you, how this is going to be an overall contribution to you, your overall journey. So starting point, what is it that you're looking to gain from this? The next part is attaching what you're hoping to gain, this position that you're looking for, and attaching that to what you've already done. So why is it that you're the right fit for this job? What is it in your past that makes you a good connection and fit? So this is really specifically, in this second right now, thinking in terms of those tangible things, such as having an internship, doing volunteer work, the specific projects that you worked on, or part-time jobs that you've had. And this is, I think, an area that I've seen a lot of students struggle with, is that they're about to look for their first job out of college, but they only maybe had 1 or 2 internships, or things didn't align and they didn't really get the chance to do an internship. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're not qualified for the position and that there's not good ways for you to be able to show those qualifications. What employers are really looking for more than anything else is a skill alignment. They want to make sure that they can trust that you will come in to do the job that you're being asked of without them having to teach you the whole thing. This is why it's really, the major that you have is very important for employers when they're looking at you. If you weren't a design major, you're looking now to get into the design field, they need to see what you can show that shows that you have the skill matches for that because you didn't have that exact major. Obviously, it's not an end-all, be-all that you didn't major in it, you can't get a job in it. That's not the truth in any way, but it's about sort of leveraging the skills you have. So, for example, if you are a fine artist and you're looking now to get into sort of doing PR and social media, you might not have had an internship that is specifically a PR or social media internship. What you may have had is an internship as an artist assistant where you did a lot of their social media and marketing for them. So in that case, when you're really working through your resume, it's about pulling those specific skills out to highlight, these are the skills I have that are important to you at this company. Rather than maybe at that internship, you were also helping with fabrication of different works. Maybe it's a little bit less about that aspect of it and more about how you handle the social media and the marketing of that person. For volunteer work, if you maybe have an organization that you've upkept social media for, talking more about that than maybe the specific volunteer work that you're doing. The other things that you can start to do other than looking at like, okay, I did this. So this is where you can start to find that you've had these skills, even if they're not necessarily intrinsic to the major that you're working in, you've had your degree in right now, or if you're just ready for a change and to try out something new, even if it is tangentially related, such as if you're interested, if you have an illustration focus and now you're looking into maybe doing graphic design, or maybe you were a graphic designer and now you're thinking you want to go more towards the photo route. It's definitely about connecting what you've done into that. So this can pull from really everywhere. Projects that you've done at your school, in school, volunteer work, and part-time jobs. These things can also be really important for just, even if you do have that major match already, to show even greater match and understanding with a company. If it's a company that perhaps is making clothes for dogs and you spent the last 4 years volunteering at a local animal shelter, having that volunteer work working with dogs on your resume can be really nice because it doesn't just show, okay, this is someone that understands how to design dog clothing or understands how to design in general. It's also someone that has already shown that they have a passion for animals and an interest in working within this world. Even if the work that you were doing at the volunteer center wasn't necessarily helping design sweaters for dogs, it was that you were walking dogs, that shows a connection in to what this company is doing that might not come across from doing, if you're a fashion design major, for example, something that's like a fashion week internship or a knitwear internship. You may have had those internships, they're definitely still important to have in there because they show an understanding of industry and those specific skills, but the volunteer work can show an extra added reason about why this place should care about you because you also care about the same thing that they do. So it's where the looking from what you've done can be really important. And this is, if you've ever met with us before, it's a big thing that we talk about is this idea of having a master resume. And this is actually a conversation we were having earlier in the office today. It's always really nice to have a resume that doesn't need to be formatted, but just where you have everything you've done, all the internships, all the volunteer work, anything that you would consider putting on your resume, have it on one master resume, and then you can switch out things on your active resume that you would hand to somebody as necessary. So if you maybe didn't have the dog walking on there because you were applying to more knitwear stuff, but then this dog walking opportunity or this dog design opportunity came up, you could then switch out maybe one of your older internships or maybe your desk part-time job or something like that you have on there for your volunteer work in order to have your resume reflect the story that these people will be interested in. The other thing you want to be able to show is what your industry knowledge is. being able to tell your story isn't just about, well, what do you personally have you accomplished, but it's also what's your perspective? What do you see happening in this industry? What's been inspiring to you in the industry, and what's next in the industry that you see happening? They're looking for someone that wants to be actively involved in what this world is about, and that cares about that. If you don't understand trends that are happening right now, how are you going to be able to stay on top of those trends within this industry? And the important thing is there's going to be the things that you really do care about within this, and it's going to come through whether or not you care about that or not. If you are at an interview for a company and they ask, well, what's your favorite thing that we recently did? You need to have answers for that, but they're not necessarily looking to critique what the thing is that you decide to pick. What you decide to pick in that moment will say a lot about you and maybe what you are focusing on as far as your design interests or art interests, whatever your kind of interests area is. But it's also going to show that you're paying attention to this company in and of itself. And this is, we've talked about this, doing that research is really important. And now when you're really having that conversation with the company, it's about showing that, like, and I'm a good fit because, one, because I know what your company does, but two, I'm interested in this piece. Here's why I'm interested in this piece. So it's about going beyond this is what I can do, this is the surface level of the job, and really delving into who you are as an artist or designer and how that is shaping the work that you do. And then hopefully finding a place that will also be excited about this work the same way that you are. It's also just important for you to have this industry knowledge in general to be able to hold these conversations with people. They want to be able to see that you are engaged and that you're excited about this work that you're doing. Someone who's excited about the work is going to come in every day and be really passionate about what they're doing and is going to bring new ideas to the table. And having that unique perspective can also be really helpful. And I think what's a really important thing to note is this idea that your perspective is your own. Companies don't want to hire all the time from the same pool. It's a big thing, and a conversation I actually recently had of just like, well, this person that runs this business is an SVA, teaches at SVA. Aren't they just going to hire their own students? That's not necessarily the way that a company would want to hire people. Most often companies will definitely hire, you'll get Pratt grads that want to hire Pratt grads because they trust Pratt grads, they trust the education you've gone through. But you're also going to get people that want to hire people that didn't necessarily all have the same school perspective. They want to get people from different industries perhaps, or just from different areas of the country, because that makes for a more interesting team and allows them to build from different perspectives. I'm just going to keep using the word perspective. This is really important when you're thinking about as you're going through job interviews. It's the where you fit on the team is really what they're looking for. And this isn't something you can anticipate from them. There's no way you can do enough research to be able to say, cool, great, they're looking for the person that's going to be like their tech person. That's what is missing from their team right now. That's not something you can do enough research on, but it's an important thing to just be aware of if you don't end up getting a job and you thought everything was going really well. It may be that someone else fit the need for their team a little bit more based off the story that they were telling. And that's where really owning your story and understanding where you fit in can be really helpful, because you can make a strong case for what it is you bring to the table. I'm going to go back to being graphic design. I come from a graphic design background, so that's the perspective I tend to take the most often. But if you just go into an interview and you're like, yep, I design things, that's not going to be as interesting to them if you're the person that's like, well, I'm really looking at deconstructing what has to be a marketing campaign. Where can that go? Or I'm the person that's really looking into ways of integrating new technologies into these campaigns. That's a perspective rather than just design stuff, really taking that ownership of things. I think a really major question that gets asked in a lot of interviews is what role do you take on in a team environment? And the answer that I feel most people actively feel is, well, I look for what's missing in the team and I try and fit that in. And that's probably a question that I hear, or an answer I see a lot. It's an answer that I personally have given a lot. But that doesn't tell me anything about you or the way you go about working for things. You want to talk more about, okay, maybe you're the person that takes on the roles that nobody else wants to do, and that's still fitting in that same thing. But also, why do you do that? Do you do that because you just want to get the work done? Do you do that because you feel that that's the best place for you to do that? You're best at kind of doing those smaller one-off things, really not thinking about what, and it's the same thing. They're not asking to really see what that role is. They want to understand your whys and your justification for how that all works out. Okay, so then making those connections. Sometimes you're going to write these things down. So you have your list now. If you're like, cool, great, I got the dog walking thing on there. I have my perspective on where I'm coming from as a designer. Now you need to make those connections clear to them. So, and what have you done and what you will be doing. So really kind of as you're going through writing your resume, writing your cover letter, and also as you're starting to think through things you want to talk about in the interview, really making that connection as clear as possible. You may think that it's super clear, but it's always important. You don't need to like 100% spell it out for them, but it's worth really making sure that connection is as clear as possible, because they might see the dog walking thing and not actively pay that much attention to it, but in the interview, you can talk about what you've been able to maybe learn about dogs as you've done dog walking. That's going to make you a great asset to be designing clothing for them. And that can just be that, like, yeah, I've walked a lot of dogs, so I understand that they're going to get into things, so we need stuff that's not going to drag on the ground. Just small things like that that make that connection really clear and give you more of a detailed perspective than someone that has maybe never really spent that much time around dogs, other than maybe they had a dog growing up once. The other thing you would want to do is make connections between the values that the company has and that you have as well. So making sure that the examples that you're pulling from are connected to what they're doing. If you see that maybe they recently did something to raise money for X organization, talking about maybe not that exact organization, but if that's a cause that you're also really passionate about, or that you also just value the fact that the company is giving back in some way, shape, or form, talking about your own value and giving back in some way, shape, or form. It's those things that will make it be, okay, cool, this person's skills match what we're looking for, to this person matches what we're looking for. Think also in terms of shared language. What are some ways that you two speak the same sort of way? This can be acted actual language, or it can be ways of speaking, ways of addressing things. If you're someone that's super into sort of diversity, social justice language, and that's something you're really passionate about, really making sure that's clear with another company that also is within that same championship. Definitely don't change the way that you're speaking, and you don't need to change things for this. This is really about your story and in the end finding the right fit for a position. But you also want to bring in, as I mentioned before, your unique perspectives. They're not just looking for more of the same people that are already working for them. They want to build a team, so they want to make sure that they're getting something that maybe they're missing, someone that's going to round out the team a little bit. I know one big thing when we've been hiring in our office recently and for one of our recent positions, it was really important that we had someone who was a little bit more on the extroverted side, and that wasn't something that's not going to necessarily ever be in the job posting description. And just because someone considered themselves an introvert doesn't mean we're not going to interview for them for the position. But the important thing is just the way it feels to have someone with that sort of perspective on the team and around, and how we see that rounding out what everyday life is going to look like in the office. Having someone that you actually want to work for, that's also a really important part of the hiring process you want to work with. So you want to make sure that your perspectives and your sort of values are coming through, so that one, the company can have a pretty clear idea of who you are, and this is outside of you getting really into anything that could be discriminated against within that. Within any of those protected classes, you don't need to get into those details. But also because you don't necessarily want to work at a place if they don't like that you volunteer on weekends. If they're not excited about that, you're going to be happier overall working in a place that also is excited about you volunteering on weekends. So then the really important thing is, as you're going through and as you're looking at these job postings and as you started to go through the interview process, is to pick specific examples to prepare them so that the company will be able to see these. So tailoring them to the company. This is, as I was saying before, where the master resume really comes in handy, because that's something you can adjust around and send off based off the company that you're looking for. And that's if you have that much experience. But also, you probably have that much experience, you just haven't been able to really look at some of the opportunities you've had and how to present those. Definitely come talk to us and we can talk to you about how you can better leverage the experiences that you have that aren't necessarily traditional work experience. You also want to try and vary the experiences that you pull from as well. I'm going to go back to my dog walking example because keeping the thread going. So if you've talked a little bit about in your cover letter and now you're in the interview, you've had a chance to talk about your dog walking experience, you also want to pull from the other experiences that are also going to inform this job. So you've had internships at this point in knitwear. What can you say about knitwear now that's also going to be important for showing you have the skills for this job? If you only have the one experience, that's totally fine as far as specific job experience, but you have multiple perspectives that you can pull examples from. You are going to have classworks that you can pull it from. You're going to have another organization that you can pull it from. You might even just have an example of something that you planned with your friends that you're going to be able to pull examples from. If you're only pulling from one experience, it makes you a really one-dimensional candidate to them that, okay, well, this person did this one thing and they did this one thing really good, but what have they done in other things? What else are they able to show me that shows that they're going to be a good employee here? And then the other thing is to work to create a holistic picture. So that same way that you don't want to just always pull from one experience, you don't necessarily want to pull from every little experience you've ever had, but you want to try and find as many varied examples that allow them to see, who are you? What is it that you value? Where are you planning on going? What perspectives are you interested in? Who are you as a person? Because overall, as much as your skills can align with things, who you are as a person is going to be sort of one of the main deciding factors of if they want to hire you or not. It's, do I want to spend every day having this person to interact with in the end? And this is the point where have confidence in yourself. Just because you don't see yourself as extroverted or you're maybe not the most outgoing person. This is coming from me, who is definitely not the most outgoing person. It's not necessarily about finding someone that they can have fun with, but it's about finding someone that they're excited to do work with, that they think is going to bring something more to the job, that has a similar passion that they do. Because really, in most offices, they want to bring someone else in that's just excited to do the work as they are to do it. And having someone that seems like they're going to be like down about the work all the time, that's going to be the biggest red flags to them. So showing the story is a really good way of really helping redefine why you fit into this position, and to show that you have those areas of passion. And how do they match? So the places that you can show this are going to be really about that holistic picture, is putting stuff into your resume, making sure it's reflected in your portfolio, in the cover letter, talking about these things in the interview, and then also having it be something your references talk about as well. If you're really going and you're saying, you're going out there as I'm going to now switch to a student affairs example, because this is also personal. So in my case, whenever I'm interviewing or talking about things in student affairs, it's really about being student-centric, which seems, okay, yeah, cool, that's obvious, but it's really about the ways that I go about making my decisions is, well, what's going to help the most students, or what is it that the students are looking for first, and how can we adjust the institution to work around that, rather than, well, this is what the institution is, how do we get the students to know about that? So that's considered student-centric in the world of student affairs. So if I'm marketing myself as I'm a student-centered person, then how has my resume reflected that? How has my portfolio reflected that? Cover letter, is that coming through in my interview? And are the people that they're checking with my references saying the exact same thing? This is the point where you don't want to change your perspective or who you are for a position, because if they call up your reference and they're like, yeah, we're like really excited about Sam. She was talking a lot about how much she really loves working on new programs and working with new technology. And the reference is just like, really, Sam was always so against us getting new technology. That's going to be a weird red flag for them. So you don't want to say something just because you think it's going to sound good to them. You want to really find those things that are strong within yourself. You don't need to spend the whole time, if you're not super into new technology, you don't need to let them know that. You don't need to go in on about that, but don't say that you're super into new technology if you're the person that like they changed us to Gmail and you were freaking out about us changing to Gmail about that. Okay, cool. So that's the end of like the formal presentation part on my end. If you have any questions, this is a really great chance to put them in the chat. If there's things that I didn't cover, good time to put those in.